My name is Olivia, and I'm going to be reviewing Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein 2025 on Netflix. So, to start off with just like a brief spoiler free overview, del Toro's Frankenstein follows Dr. Victor Frankenstein, played by Oscar Isaac, a scientist whose obsession with conquering death leads him to create life unnaturally. So his creation, which he calls the creature, who's played by Jacob Elordi, escapes into the world, desperate for connection and belonging. Meanwhile, Mia Goth plays Elizabeth, which is Victor's brother's fiance, but also Victor's love interest. The film, for the most part, stays true to the emotional arc of the novel, but it does lean heavily into the tragedy at its core, which is the desire to be loved and the consequences of trying to control life itself. So I have a few strengths of the film. First of all, I want to start with the performances because this the actors in this movie did like absolutely amazing. So I'm gonna start off with Jacob Elordi, who just as a reminder plays the creature. And he probably gives one of the most heartbreaking portrayals of the creature that I have ever seen in the film world. Um, he doesn't play him as just a monster, but he plays him as like a lost soul, and he's physically powerful. Powerful physically, fragile emotionally, and he's also like painfully aware of his own loneliness. You can almost feel just watching his performance, you can almost feel the tension in his body, and the way he moves is like he's learning his place in the world. Oscar Isaac, who plays Dr. Victor Frankenstein, he manages to shift pretty flawlessly between genius and madness, and he makes Victor seem both sympathetic and horrifying to the audience at the same time. Mia Goth, who is Elizabeth, she delivers like a quietly devastating performance, I would say. She's kind of the grounding force of the film because she provides a warmth that contrasts with the coldness of Victor's world. And I would say another strength of the film is the cinematography. So if you are aware of Guillermo del Toro's films, I'm not really. This is actually the first film that I have seen from him. Um, you'll know that his cinematography skills are like incredible. They are just plain incredible. This film in specific uses shadows and candlelit interiors and in blue, like stormy blue colors that symbolize the creature's isolation, I think, just from what I picked up. The camera movements are slow and deliberate, and it's kind of like the film, it doesn't really feel like you're watching a movie. It feels like you're watching just something happen on screen. Like it doesn't feel scripted, it feels real almost. Um, Basically, every frame looks and feels handcrafted. And I would say another strength is the sound and the music in the movie. It does use like some haunting music, but it also does use silence, which stands out a lot to me during the scenes where the creature is alone and he's feeling isolated. They use silence to really or to symbolize that. Um, the scene in particular, which isn't much of a spoiler, so don't worry. The scene in particular that I think about is when the creature is in the woods and he's just kind of like experiencing everything for the first time, and it's the silence that follows in that scene to me feels like it's supposed to symbolize a world that doesn't accept him, that he doesn't belong in. And these choices really make the emotional aspects hit harder, and they definitely highlight the creature's vulnerability. And then for the last strength that I have is emotional impact. This movie is sad. This movie is very sad. Um, it's not bleak for the sake of being bleak, but it's because Del Toro really understands the tragedy and the heart of the movie. Um, it's just about a creature that never asked to be born and a man who refuses to take responsibility for his consequences. The film, I would say, really sticks with you, especially in its final moments, which, again, I won't spoil, but they definitely stuck with me for a while. Moving on to weaknesses and constructive criticism. The film visually is like it's breathtaking. It's beautiful. The pacing in the middle, for me, it felt slow. Um, Del Toro loves like long atmospheric takes or sequences, which is both a strength and a drawback, I think, in my opinion at least. Especially if the audiences expect a more traditional horror film. This is not that at all. I feel like some viewers would also feel like the film leans too heavily on sadness. It's like every scene is emotionally loaded, like it's heavy, which means that the story doesn't really have a lot of moments for the audience to breathe and just recover from whatever's happening on screen because it's a lot. The movie, Del Toro is a very ambitious director for sure, I would say. So even when the movie drags on with like its long scenes, it feels like it's doing so with a purpose. Like it doesn't feel like it's um like dragging the movie down in any way. It's just dragging it out and making the story hit harder, if that makes sense. So this film, from what I have picked up, is for viewers who like gothic and character-driven stories, and they aren't expecting a horror film like The Conjuring or Insidious. Um, I would say that Del Toro uses themes of creation and responsibility, that's a big one. Isolation and identity, that's another big one. What makes someone human and the consequences of trying to control nature. It also explores the idea of the outsider, which we can see in both Victor's character and the creature's character, in a world that usually strives for perfection. Del Toro gives more empathy to the flawed, and I think he really challenges the audience to do the same. My personal reflection, I loved, personally, I loved this movie. I sat down and watched it with my roommates, and we usually, whenever we're watching a movie, we're like chatting or we're telling some jokes about the movie. This one, silent the whole time. We were all locked in, ready to watch the whole 2.5 hours of this movie. It was basically silence from all of us. We were so into the movie. And I really love Guillermo del Toro's style. I went into this film basically just expecting just another movie, but instead I got something so much more emotional and intimate. It was heavy, but it was so good. I've never, like I said, I've never seen a Del Toro movie before, but I do have family members who love his work, and I can definitely see why now after watching Frankenstein. If you prefer faster paced films or plot heavy storytelling, I would say this movie isn't for you, but I would still definitely recommend you to go check it out. It's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, I don't think it's anywhere else. I don't know. So, overall, Frankenstein is a beautifully crafted, heavily emotional film that balances horror and tragedy and humanity. It's not perfect, but not every film is. But Del Toro definitely brings a passion to the story that feels fresh and relevant, no pun intended, to the creature. If you're into gothic cinema, emotional storytelling, or like you just, I will say Jacob Elordi's performance of the creature is definitely something that I would recommend seeing. You don't want to pass it up. So this film is absolutely worth watching, in my opinion.